What's up, everybody? Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing another Godzilla vs Kong news and updates. Alright, so as with the last video, I gotta be a little quiet this time because I got people trying to sleep right behind this wall, even though it's only 9 o'clock. What the heck? So I gotta be a little quieter this one. We just gotta go with it. It's okay. We can do a chilled out episode. Last video we talked about the fact that Godzilla vs Kong is being delayed. We talked about the different release dates for the movie, some of the reasons behind it. I didn't really get into why I think it's a good thing, although like the reasons that we covered were why I think it's a good thing. Specifically the political pushback. I know there's a lot of controversy surrounding Hong Kong at the moment, so pushing back a movie that has a Hong Kong scene, or supposedly quite a bit of the movie is in Hong Kong, pushing that one back gives us a lot of breathing room, and hopefully things are better by then. Also, getting the movie away from the very China-oriented Mulan is a very good decision. You want to get that one on out of here. You just want to make sure that there's a big enough difference between a very Chinese-oriented movie and Godzilla vs. Kong for Godzilla vs. Kong to do well in China, because of course the MonsterVerse relies on the Chinese box office to succeed. So we covered a lot of that. We covered a lot of that last episode, or last video. I call them episodes from now. I guess I'm old. So today we are going to talk about other people's take on this. We're going to get into a little bit of other people's opinions on this, starting out with Adam Wingard, who didn't offer much. Adam Wingard, the director of Godzilla vs. Kong, simply offered us, and it's going to be an epic November. Epic, all caps. Spoken like a true gamer. Yeah, so Adam Wingard posted this to his Instagram right after the announcement. He features the Criterion art of King Kong vs. Godzilla 1962 with Kong flipping Godzilla. I've seen some people reading into this going, oh, that's an indication that Kong's gonna win. Oh my goodness, you guys are idiots. Why are you reading into it so much? He's just posting a cool picture. He probably thought the art was awesome. That's it. That's all there is to it. That doesn't mean anything. I almost guarantee it. Even if Kong does win, I'm going to say that that tweet was not an indication of that decision. So he didn't offer much, and he probably can't. He probably can't say a lot at the moment, and he probably doesn't want to say a lot at the moment, so that's all we got. Now getting into Gormaru Island, my personal favorite source of Godzilla news. Let's see what they had to say about Godzilla vs. Kong. We're just going to read out what they wrote, and I'm going to give my thoughts on it, because that's what this video is, and that's what this channel is. I just read things other people wrote, and then give my thoughts on it. It's nothing new. So they talk about the Godzilla vs. Kong delay, and they say they're going to look at the good things about it, starting out with the competition. That's their first tweet. Godzilla and Kong Skull Island were both critical and commercial successes, the leading films of the MonsterVerse franchise, and the stunning proof that the MonsterVerse was a verified franchise. One that was successful, one that exhibited the potential to withstand a comic book dominated market. Then arrived the highly anticipated Godzilla King of the Monsters, the third MonsterVerse film, the film that carried the potential to fully solidify the franchise as a legendary entertainment powerhouse property. Years later, it finally came out, and while fan beloved, unfortunately, it was a commercial disappointment. Again, I want to specify here, it is a disappointment, right? But it's not a failure, and they're not saying it's a failure. It isn't. I just want to make that crystal clear, because so many people will try and chalk it up as this huge box office disaster, and that is not the case at all. And now, in 2020, the fourth installment of the MonsterVerse, Godzilla vs. Kong, once slated for March 2020, has been delayed for 8 months to November, and that's a good thing. So they also think it's a good thing. It's not just me who thinks it's a good thing. Being delayed is a saving grace. It gives Warner Brothers and Legendary not only time to craft the best must-see event possible, but also gives them the chance to bring back what both Godzilla and Kong Skull Island had, but King of the Monsters jumped the gun too soon to get straight to the action. That being story. So what they're saying here, and basically what they go into in the rest of their tweet chain, is that the thing that Godzilla King of the Monsters does is basically it's a huge spectacle. And this is a little bit of what we talked about last video. It goes from action scene to action scene at an almost nauseating pace. And there really isn't a ton of attention to the story in the film. There's not a ton of attention given to the characters. Now, personally, I think it has some of the best character stuff between Mark and Serizawa. I know that that didn't resonate with everybody, and I also know that those two characters didn't interact nearly as much as they should have, and Serizawa should have been the emotional core of the movie, but really wasn't, because so much else was going on that it was distracted from that. What they're saying here, and what I agree with, is that the movie should have focused more on a more personal connection for the audience to get behind than it actually did, and that's what films like Kong Skull Island and Godzilla 2014 did. They go on to explain that Kong Skull Island had the whole story with Hank Marlowe. He was the emotional core of the story. Joe Brody was the emotional core of his story, and then Ford took on that mantle, and a lot of people dislike Ford, but Joe was the emotional core of his movie. And that's what they're arguing, is that Godzilla King of the Monsters didn't really have enough of that. It went straight for action, spectacle, giant monsters beating each other up, which is what a lot of Godzilla fans always want, but it didn't focus enough on story to resonate with general audiences and critics. As we talked about last video, they don't care about us fans because we're gonna go see the movie no matter what, right? It's just a guaranteed. Of course we're gonna go see the movie. It's like the idea with marketing, right? The reason that they would spoil things in trailers is because they have the weird notion that people want everything spoiled for them and that only fans will notice spoilers, which of course we know isn't true, but it's the same general principle, right? It's the same idea that fans are guaranteed, so who cares what the fans think of the trailer? We need to make sure that the general audiences love the trailer. It's the same idea here, right? They know that the fans are going to go see the movie one way or another. We're just going to go see it, so it doesn't matter. What matters is if the normies go out to see the movie, and the way to get normies is to have a grand story, to have a big emphasis on story rather than spectacle and visuals. You can still have spectacle and visuals, but you got to focus on the story and the emotional resonance of the characters first and foremost. I don't think that's a bad thing. I know a lot of Godzilla fans say, well, why would you even go see the movie for the human characters? I just think that's a very limited viewpoint to look at things. I think you got to expand a little bit. I think you got to look at things a little more realistically here and realize that there is something to be said for an emotional story, one that resonates with audiences, one with a great emotional core. I just think we need that, you know? So I think, yeah, if they need to push the movie back to somehow achieve that through reshoots or through re-editing or whatever they're going to do, they can do that. Please let them do that, you know? Just as long as they deliver the best movie possible. And some people will argue, well, delaying a movie doesn't make it the best movie possible, and reshoots also don't make it the best movie possible. I absolutely agree with you. I'm not saying go and refilm the entire film. I'm just saying make the adjustments that need to be made if they need to be made. If they don't need to be made, don't make them. Maybe push the movie back for competition reasons alone, which is what Gormaru Island talks about here, with the film being released 2 weeks after Marvel's Eternals, a property which they say, you know, isn't very well known and has had mixed publication success. Of course, as I talked about the last video, that sometimes is the case where that will translate onto the big screen with an average box office performance, but also with films like Black Panther or Captain Marvel, which also has had a shoddy comic book run. I think I'm supposed to say spotty comic book run, but I definitely said shoddy. A spotty comic book run. Or of course Guardians of the Galaxy, which is the big breakout hit. Sometimes they just do very, very well. But I also think that people are kind of turning on Marvel recently, which I don't totally understand, but it's happening, and so it'll be interesting to see what occurs in 2020. I still love the MCU and Godzilla. I still love them both. So November 25th is Godzilla vs Kong's biggest competition according to Gormaru Island, or at least its most direct competition, because of course they have a 2-week grace period between Marvel's Eternals and Godzilla vs Kong. And on November 25th, a movie called Raya, I don't know how to properly pronounce that, Raya and the Last Dragon, which is an original Disney animated film, will come out. Looks to be another very Asian-oriented film. I don't want to say Chinese because I don't know for sure. It's just an Eastern dragon, so I don't know. I don't know who that's exactly targeted towards, but I don't think the animated films do nearly as well as the big live-action films, with some exceptions like Frozen, but generally speaking, they don't. So I don't think we have too much to worry about there, as opposed to Mulan, which I do think would be something to worry about for Godzilla vs Kong, specifically with that Chinese box office, as I talked about in the last video. Next up, we have Yoko Higuchi, who worked on Shin Godzilla. Shout out to Yoko. He's actually a great guy. I love talking to him. He talked a little bit about this as well, and his thoughts are very similar to mine. So he says, I already hear a lot of fans complaining that they have to wait a little longer for Godzilla vs Kong in 2020. Having the film delayed allows the filmmakers extra time they need to work on visual effects, sound design, score, and everything else they need to do to make this the best film they could possibly make. And November, as of right now, isn't a crowded month for films, which was one of the reasons why Godzilla King of the Monsters didn't do so well earlier this year. Yeah, that's absolutely true. The movie was in the back end of Endgame, which was still dominating the box office at that point, but it was also fighting Aladdin head on, and Aladdin won the fight. This gives Godzilla vs Kong the maximum amount of box office support they need so the MonsterVerse can continue. Don't complain about the 8th month delay. Seriously, it's not that big of a deal. Godzilla fans have waited longer for movies before. Be happy the filmmakers are allotted more time to work on Godzilla vs Kong. Next Thanksgiving is going to feature the greatest gladiator match in the history of the world. Let's rejoice rejoice that it's actually coming. So yeah, basically he's just saying it's not that bad. People have waited through longer periods of time. Of course, we have waited through longer periods of time. Even if you were like me and you didn't really have to suffer through the 10-year gap between Godzilla Final Wars and Godzilla 2014, we made it, you know, we made it from even Godzilla 2014 to Shin Godzilla, which was a 2-year wait, which is still longer than what we're dealing with here with Godzilla vs Kong. So it's not that big of a deal. I don't understand why people are so freaked out about that. And of course, if you want to go strictly MonsterVerse, we waited 5 years from Godzilla 2014 to Godzilla King of the Monsters, and it was fine. It was not that big of a deal. A lot of people are super excited to get everything they want, to get all that juicy goodness, but you just gotta let it play out, and you just gotta go with it, you know? You do. Just gotta see what happens, enjoy the ride, and have fun. Thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man, out.